got no rest.
Thank you for taking Time for Hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp all around the world on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and, of course, iHeartRadio. You can find us as well on the Roku TV network. Make it a point to go to the timeforhemp.com website and find out how to enjoy us on Roku TV. It is Tuesday, and on Tuesday we salute all the amazing activists up in Canada, and today we've got Kelly Kriston as our joint host. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Casper. How you doing today?
Pretty mellow. How's life in your slice of heaven?
I gotta like it. This time of year, we're usually knee-deep in snow, and you know what? We're not. So I'm liking it.
Well, it sounds like global warming is paying off in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Well, we have on the big broadcast today Anndrea Hermann and her new joint host for the the iHemp radio broadcast. Anndrea does a show on the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network, and it's called iHemp Radio. Make it a point to tune in and check it out. And we have also got all the archives of all the programming, including those that Anndrea does on the big broadcast. And she's being joined, or we're being joined as well, by Joan Beckman-Mayer, who's going to be the new joint host on their program. And it is exciting to have you ladies on the show.
Hey, so happy to be here.
Thank you. And I'm going to pass this joint chat over to all the people up in Canada while I enjoy my American cannabis here on Time for Hemp.
Well, it's awesome to have you two ladies here. Apparently you're in my hometown of Calgary at the moment. One of you is from the U.S. to the south of us, and one of you is from Canada, and I guess we're going to call you the Hemp Sisters.
Yay! That's exactly what we are. That's exactly right. Well, and I can tell you that nice, not having that cold weather yet. I'm based in Manitoba, and it's so nice. This year I went into doing winter green, so it's so amazing to be able to extend our cultivation season for feeding ourselves food, which is one of the key things that, Joy and I really embrace is, the concept of how we can do that. It's a side personal note. But yeah, we're up here in Calgary. It's always great to come together with Joy so that we can do the work that we love to do. And that helps facilitate not only other people's hemp dreams coming true, but our hemp dreams coming true. And part of that work is including doing some workshops.
Oh, we are here for some big things. It's great to be here in Calgary. I hail from Washington, so arrived last night. But we'll be doing a hempcrete workshop with Hemp Technologies, hemp-technologies.com, who are the builders of the first permitted hempcrete homes in the U.S., and Anndrea is president of Hemp Technologies. So we're super excited. We'll deliver the incredible, truly fascinating science of hemp and lime building, hempcrete being a mold-resistant, rot-resistant, pest-resistant, and fire-resistant carbon-negative building material.
And if you look at building with hempcrete, Joy, in Canada particularly, where we have mold issues, not that we don't have them all over the globe, but when we've got issues with mold in homes and we start talking about the thermal capacity and the ability for that home to use less energy to heat the home when we are mostly in winter all the time, it's going to be amazing opportunities for home builders in Canada. And one of those home builders we work with is based in Ontario.
Yes, the Enrix Group. Stu Oliver, really a master sustainable builder and just a planetary healer and human settlement sort of expert in every way. And I find that with hempcrete. The real pioneers of hempcrete are true planetary healers. They really are, master carpenters and construction folks as well, obviously, but understanding the tremendous environmental impact at replacing the horrible fiberglass pink stuff, the Tyvek, the drywall, the vinyl siding, replace it all with hemp and lime and get superior performance.
Absolutely. And so much hemp is grown, as we know, in the Prairie Province and in Alberta, and we have amazing support from the Alberta government. So we just want to give a big thanks to, the government of Canada, really, and all the provincial governments that have helped support the industrial hemp movement, the legislation, and the growth of an industry that here in Canada has helped shape the industries around the globe that have moved forward with hemp legislation, food regulations, and even, considering the concept of using hemp as a building material, Kelly.
Yes. I'm obviously we got started off in a flurry there. Hempcrete. When I hear that word, I hear one of my favorite words in the world, of course, which is hemp, and then crete. And I just think, obviously concrete. So now we've got this real strong product. Can you, let's talk a little bit about hempcrete maybe and what it actually is?
Thank you so much. That's the perfect segue question, really, for sort of starting at that foundation for hempcrete. Hemp and lime building has been around for thousands of years. Hempcrete is nothing new. There was simply the resurgence of hempcrete in modern times happened in the mid-1980s. And it's true, this word crete, the minute you say crete, of course, you're going to think of concrete. So talking about what hempcrete is and what it isn't, if I had my way, it would never have been called hempcrete. It would be called, hemp fill, because hempcrete is insulation. It is infill for walls. Now, certainly it can be used for floors and ceilings if all of the, the building applications and the purpose of the building would work for hempcrete for floor and roof. Oftentimes there are other wonderful green, environmental, and energy-efficient products that might even be superior for floors and roof. But the point is, it is a wall infill. Most folks ask, can I make a driveway out of that or a sidewalk? And the answer is this is about creating a living, breathable wall. So always above ground. Daylight, we say, it has to be above the ground. We've never put it against the earth or on the floor or on the ground. So it's really infill. It is not a substitute for concrete.
Yeah, and Kelly, essentially, it's three ingredients. You have the inner core portion of the stalk, which is called hurd, and then you have a lime binder. A lime-based binder, and then you add water. So you put those three ingredients together at a certain proportion, and then you put this into the wall. So it's so simple, and the nice thing is that this is a job that you can do with a relatively low labor skill, but that can become a very skilled trait. So that's a very nice thing about thinking about incorporating into houses in Canada or around the globe.
Right. I'm trying to grab a visual of this product, and now there's moisture. So it's mixed up and then it's formed and then dried and put in place, or this is a form that you build, like you would, say, a concrete wall, and you fill it up with hempcrete and wait for it to set and then pull off the forms?
Yes, essentially what happens is you put up forms or shutters, and then you make your hempcrete in like a mortar mixer or a pan mixer. So you've added your ingredients, you've mixed those thoroughly together. Then you're going to put this kind of like oatmeal-y, a little bit more like chunky than oatmeal-y mixture into this wall cavity that you formed up. You're going to tamp it in, and then you're going to, in about 12 to 24 hours, you're going to remove that form. And then you're going to move up, and you're going to pack more into this wall, and then you're going to move those forms up again, and you're going to pack more in this wall. The nice thing about it is it does not have a slumping factor like concrete does, where you've got to leave it in there till it completely cures up so that it's actually more congealed. This happens very quickly, and I've actually seen forms pulled off in like 12 hours for smaller projects. But yeah, the wall needs to have some time to cure up after you've removed the shutters, and then you could come back in and you can make this house look as earthen as you want with a beautiful render on the outside and earthen plasters, or you can frame it to the outside and put siding so that you look like every other suburbia home. Nobody would ever have to know that you had an extremely eco-friendly insulation by looking on the outside, and that's one of the lovely things.
And I think too, what's interesting is you can be so creative. So the amount of design and creativity that opportunity for that in the home, outside, exterior, and the interior. And another thing is when we talk about these forms and the differences between concrete, it not only is it a much less curing time, obviously, but with concrete it's a heavy caustic material, obviously, and so it is pushing out the bottom of the form when you pour it. Hempcrete is, in many cases, much more earthquake resistant and can be stronger than concrete. It's certainly more lightweight. So the forms, those shutters that you put up, it's nowhere near the strength and labor and force involved with the kind of forms you would need to put up to support a big, heavy concrete caustic. Can't help but say that concrete pour.
Right. Caustic. Now, another question that it brings to mind now, as you're building this wall, how tall a wall can you build before you have to put another level on, like the third story of the house or something like that? Say if you wanted to have vaulted ceilings or that type of thing, there's obviously a limit, I'm assuming, is you can't go 20-foot high walls, or can you?
Well, you could. It depends. I mean, because this is a non-structural, I mean, of course, there's a very small amount of structural properties, but hempcrete as an infill is not load-bearing. So you're still going to need the load-bearing portion of the frame of the house or of the structure as we go high. Now, we have not seen, major skyscrapers that have been created, but I think they've got up to around 7 stories, something of that sort.
And the Mark and Spencer's huge, mall in England that is hempcrete. And that was prefab panels, which is a great opportunity now for us to tell you that you can, of course, mix on site, and that's the process that Anndrea and I were just discussing, where you're mixing it on site, you're pouring and tamping and moving those forms up. But there's also prefabricated hempcrete panels, which would then come pre-cured. So for a commercial application, they may not want to wait the 6 to 8 weeks, especially for these giant, construction projects that are going up with hempcrete, such as the Mark and Spencer's mall. But again, as long as you've got good designers and your framing, your structural framing is sound, there really are not going to be limits with hempcrete. Hempcrete actually is monolithic and will stiffen the structure. So it's about your framing and your architecture, your design.
Gotcha. Now, when I first hear the word hempcrete, I'm thinking concrete, like I say, and really strong, and I'm using it to make my basement, but you can't put it against the earth. And it really isn't a crete because it's kind of deceiving. It's more on the insulation side of things.
And that's right. If we would, like we say, if we could go back pie in the sky, we just call it hemp and lime or something else. It did get the word hempcrete, but yes, absolutely. This is, can you put hemp in a concrete? Well, maybe. It just really depends. But this is, we don't, and I think the interesting sort of dynamic shift is we don't think about our houses living and breathing. We think about our homes as supposed to be this tight, everything's tight. We don't want this house to have any breathing at all. But in the concept of hempcrete, that breathing actually helps regulate the indoor temperature. It helps regulate the humidity in the home to where you're decreasing the opportunity for molds to grow, and you're regulating that temperature, which is so key. And we have seen, of course, Canada and, Britain and the UK, we have such a strong relationship. And we look at what's been done over there and some of the tests that has come out by side-by-side units showing the massive decrease, sometimes up to a 50% decrease in the energy cost alone. And, and how is the place being heated? Well, it's heated with the lights and the body temperature because we ourselves are massive energy vessels. And you bring a room full of people in their offices, their computers, and everything's going, their energy's going, and that room heats up, those walls heat up, and then you don't even need to turn on the furnace.
And that is simply the reality of it. And it goes the same way with HVAC systems. So we're really reducing even the upfront cost in terms of heating systems, cooling systems, air conditioning, and HVAC. You're reducing the need for those in terms of power. And so that upfront cost for those tools, and then the very little use of them. So your savings in energy efficiency is huge. Kelly, wondering, when you hear us say living and breathing, are you curious what we mean by that or how that happens?
I was imagining the walls in my semi-stone stupor actually expanding and contracting as my walls breathe as I was in the house. Sorry, it was just a visual that I sort of caught.
No, believe me, I may or may not have had a few Grateful Dead shows where, I may or may not have had that experience in the hotel room afterwards. But no, it's living and breathing because lime is amazing, and so is hemp. So really, the 70% of the magic, or I'll say the incredible science of hempcrete, is actually in the lime. Because of the lime cycle, what happens is it starts out as calcium carbonate. It's a rock that has to be quarried, but this rock has been formed over thousands of years through pressure on top of seashells and insects and plankton and all of this type of thing. And then, but it's quarried out as a rock. Then we heat it to 900 degrees. Keep in mind, that's a carbon footprint right there that we have to account for because we're using that energy to heat this limestone up to 900 degrees. Side note, concrete, cement clinker, that's 3,000 degrees. So we're already much less than concrete, but still it is part of our footprint that we have to account for. However, when we heat this, what happens is it drives the CO2 out. It drives the CO2 out of the limestone. Now, in doing so, it creates these bubbles, these holes in the limestone while this gas is being forced and driven out of it. Now, those bubbles is what in the end will make lime that we use in construction to be a porous, spongy colloid material, such that it is a nice spongy sort of particles that are resting in a more dense substance. So once we flake it, which means they add water to it before it gets into the powder that we then buy. And side note, it isn't just lime. We say a lime-based binder. You don't want to go making your own binder without checking with professionals. There are pre-mixed binders that would be much safer because there are certain additives you want to use for certain climates. But in any event, so you buy your lime, and then what do you do to make a mortar out of it? You add water to it. Now, guess what that lime wants to become again? It wants to become limestone again. This is the lime cycle. It wants to become calcium carbonate. So you add it to your hemp, and you make your hempcrete, and now all of a sudden, the lime is now literally grabbing carbon molecules from the atmosphere in an attempt to become whole again, to become calcium carbonate. And this is where that carbon sequestration comes in the infill itself. Having said that, and by the way, will fossilize and petrify between 5 and 50 years. Having said that, not all of the lime molecules are going to bind with carbon. Some are going to remain free limes, is what they're called, and they do not bind with carbon molecules. And these free limes actually move throughout the wall by way of humidity and vapor. So as the vapor moves throughout the wall, the lime is carrying it through and carrying it right through the industrial hemp as well. And that's the living, breathing piece of it.
The magic of lime.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and really the great thermal properties of industrial hemp that are very unique. As most folks maybe think, because hemp looks like canap or flax from the outside, that it's maybe the same on the inside, and nothing could be farther from the truth. It is very different biocellulose. It's the most valuable biocellulose that we have on the planet for many reasons, but where it has its thermal properties are that when we look at a magnified version of industrial hemp herb, that inner woody core, we see that there are these holes and boxes sort of within the cellulose, and within those cell walls are other little holes, and that's where the lime and the vapor are being able to move through those holes and tubes in the hemp cellulose and through those cell walls.
No.
That's pretty cool. And what's also cool is paying our bills, which is what we're going to do now. And then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is. And then when we come back, we're going to pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
I want to talk to y'all for a second about smoking weed. Skip well, this for you, baby. Oh, boy. They call me Mike Easy. I used to walk around queasy, easy, a little bit of. All the things that I've done. Now my name wasn't on the tip of the tongue. Had me confused. That shit made me lose. Turns out that I just don't like being in clubs out late at night, so nobody sees me. And they say that hurt my career. Well, that started to bother me. So my doc prescribed for me. Oh, since then, like I'm on top of the world, I smoke weed. Those stinky little green weed. I wake and bake, sleep and talk. I smoke until I choke. You smoke marijuana, and you still got fire on it. Ooh, come a day, the time has come to finally legalize this marijuana. Ooh, in times of passion, look here, it's trouble. I'll vaporize some Jack Hermann because it's way better than Viagra. And if you've got anxiety, have you ever tried weed? It's easy. Break it down, you roll it right by. Where's my lighter? Play a line in and FAC. Get mad in case you frequently, cause I'm a true believer. Man, I've been limping around this sleep since like 1993. But when I eat, I clear my feet. It's like I'm walking away. I smoke weed, those stinky little green. I wake and bake, sleep and talk. I smoke until I choke. You smoke marijuana, and you still got fire on it. Ooh,
That's called I Smoke Marijuana, and I play it on the broadcast because, hey, I smoke marijuana, and 99.9% of the people who are on this network do. We have a handful of people who are on the network who don't smoke marijuana, like Judge James Gray. He does a broadcast on the network, and he is also a non-user, but he does believe that cannabis is a wonderful plant, should be made available recreationally, should be made available for medical, and we should be utilizing the hemp aspect of it as well. So just because you don't smoke it, don't mean that you can't benefit from it. As you've heard from the beginning of this show, there's a lot of great products that are made from this plant that benefit everyone. And with that said, I'm going to put my joint back into my hands and put this conversation back into the hands of my joint host here at Time for Hemp.
We were rolling along really excellent there for sure. Some great information, and you've really helped me a lot with my questions. I do have one on the breathability that we were just discussing before the break. I built my hempcrete home, and then I decided I want to put some vinyl siding on it so that I look like everybody else in the neighborhood and I'm not a standout. Obviously, that's going to affect the breathability of it. I know that I've installed siding like that in the past, and of course, it needs to expand and contract with the heat and the cold, and it's not airtight. It's not meant to be airtight. It is a covering, so there will be some air passage, but no doubt I'm assuming it's going to diminish the breathability, or one of the big advantages that I have with my hempcrete home. I'm going to lose a lot of that if I decide to throw up some siding or other type of thing on the outside of my home.
No, well, here's the solution to that, because you're certainly welcome to do all kinds of siding. You would never put it directly, if it were vinyl, particularly if it were a non-breathable material. So if you did, of course, an exterior lime rendering plaster, that would be great. You could do a magnesium oxide board on the inside. That would also be great. You could go up against it. But if you're going to do vinyl, you're going to do something that's non-breathable, or even wood, you would essentially make a batting, sort of an inch or two of space, a gap between the siding and the hempcrete itself. So you would not lose that breathability, because it's not just, oh, bummer, I lost my breathability. It's, oh, bummer, my wall just rotted out. So it would be a disaster.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's so simple to be able to do that, and I mean, and that's why it's really key, Kelly, from the beginning, somebody who's interested in building with hempcrete, to reach out to people like us at Hemp Technologies and our colleagues in the industry, to have them engage from an early process when you're talking about the design and the engineering of the build, so that those things are taken into account when we start looking at what does this house look like in the long run, incorporating hempcrete into it? What are the limitations? What are, and what we say, it's like, okay, well, maybe you have to look at the house and say, hey, look, I'm on this side of the house. I want to use the hempcrete on the south side because I know it's going to retain so much more of that heat. And looking at those design features and say, okay, what other great alternative products or other products that can we incorporate in that marry very well on the hempcrete scope? And, definitely everybody head over to hemp-technologies.com. Go to our facts and questions page. There's so much on there. And, really, I always tell people, start preparing that list of questions. Oh, what is this? And then you really start to hone in on what you want. What are the questions that you need? And now we're really seeing, these homes come on the market and going right through the building code permit and process pretty relatively easy. And if we look at the cost, Kelly, we're now getting these costs for these homes, for the hempcrete homes, really almost at par with the traditional built home. And that's really beneficial that we're able to get that price down to where it's not so exorbitant to go and build a hempcrete home. It's very similar, and you're getting, and not to mention, your house starts saving you money. So our philosophy is we want to build smart income homes. How can I take your income and build a smart income home that then you're actually able to use your home to make your income more valuable? And that income is by saving you money, and that is a smart income home.
Huge. And I love that we're really seeing that. we're really seeing these, quantifiable savings and superior performance. It is truly the optimal indoor air quality. That's what hemp and lime insulation in your home is going to provide, the optimal indoor air quality. So folks who are chemical sensitivities or any type of respiratory, issues that affect them, this is what they want. This is what they need.
Excellent. When you say you've got the cost pretty much almost on par with the traditional build, that's, of course, a huge factor for someone maybe who's considering it. But now we look at the cost savings on heating, and I assume we're getting the similar benefit with air conditioning. Do you have a quantifiable figure you can give to us that, say, if you build two identical houses together, they're going to save roughly 2% a year or 22% a year of heating costs?
I mean, honestly, Kelly, we have seen up to 50%. And I'll tell you, Joy and I just had the opportunity to travel down. We did 2 workshops in Asheville, North Carolina. And we got the opportunity to go up and visit Hemp Technology's first permitted hempcrete home, which was the first time that I've been in it, and Joy also. And he showed us, and this actually came from the electric company themselves, and I think it was around 75%. Joy, was it 75%?
Yes, and 83 for the Now House. Now for the Mountain Townhouse, actually, I think it was around 67.
Okay, but the factor. Tell them the factor. The comparison was still apples and oranges.
Yeah, and so here we were in this house built up on the side of the mountains, and they were showing that a home that was, comparing these to homes that were in the valley, that the temperature was warmer in the valley than it was up on the mountain, and still that mountain home had a reduction of 60% of its energy cost than a traditional built home. That is a lot of money. So even if we can look at decreasing an energy bill by 30%, that's massive savings over the long run of that home. And then you start really looking at, okay, well, how are we actually heating this home, and how can, when you're living in your home all the time and you've got your units going and your TVs and your lights on, you start to even decrease even more. And then you start realizing, oh, if I get a little chilly, maybe I should put on a sweater versus heating my house up so I can be in a tank top in the middle of winter. And so those are some lifestyle changes also. But really, the hempcrete building is for all people. So you can go as earthy as you want. You can go as standard as you want. You can make interesting cutouts. There's just so much opportunity there. And the nice thing about it also is that, this is something that you can do on your own. You can be a home builder and work with this material, but we definitely tell you, and suggest that you seek the expertise, because we don't want a home builder's home to fall apart because they didn't come and take a training, for instance, and actually seek out the advice that's of great value to them. And, one of those great values is like having the National Association here in Canada, the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, right? And those are ways of, networking and getting aligned with people that are, working in the industry.
And, I'll also say that with regard to that 60% savings from that first permitted home, which, by the way, was built for the mayor of Asheville, North Carolina, and he's still there. It's a beautiful home. That they compared his home, which is on the side of a tall mountain. I mean, you are driving vertical incline. It is freezing cold and windy on the side of this mountain, and they were comparing that energy use with homes that are down at street level at the bottom of the mountain and don't even have the elements and the temperature changes that particular home goes to. So I'll just again say that 67% energy savings is dumbed down somewhat. I'll also say that while we're discussing the energy savings, in terms of how can we save money in the building of the home, and for the last few years, it's sort of been like, Well, there's going to be a larger upfront cost if you're just comparing it to the pink stuff, so to speak. But the reality is, for example, I'm in Seattle, Washington. I'm talking U.S. currency right now. Most people are building homes there for average homes that are $250 U.S. Per square foot. But we can build, depending on the design and the thickness of the wall, there's all of those design concerns. You can't just say this is how much it costs to build a home. But for a 12-inch wall with a basic design, we can probably get that thing done for $150 U.S. per square foot. So we're really talking about making it comparable, at the upfront cost as well.
That, obviously gives it that much more appeal if you're going to have a more energy efficient home. And it's breathable, which is a crazy good feature, I think. Longevity. Now, obviously, this is a relatively new product. You say back in the 80s. Do we have structures that have been up for that long and are still everything's A-okay with it?
I'm so glad you asked this question, and actually, you may have just misunderstood, or I misspoke, or just said it wrong to you. Just didn't explain it correctly. No, hemp and lime building has been around for thousands of years, and hempcrete has been around for at least 1,000 years. There is actually a hempcrete structure in Japan still standing that we believe is somewhere between 400 and 500 years old. So it's really the modern day is how I described when I discussed Charles Rossetti, a green builder from France. The modern day resurgence of hempcrete began in the mid-1980s in France.
Right. Now, another thing
I'm sorry to say this. Yes, your hempcrete structure should last 300 to 500 years, and when the life of that building is over, you can crack it up and put it in your next hempcrete structure, or perhaps use it as a type of soil amendment. I mean, it is reusable.
Phenomenal. Awesome. Awesome. Now, another concern is I've decided to build my hempcrete home. I'm super happy there, and after 10 years, all of a sudden, things changed. The kids got bigger, or we got more of them, or et cetera, or grandma moved in, and we've decided to now renovate in our home, which many people do once they're, something changes in their life and they decide they want to stay there, but maybe they want to add some electrical or some plumbing and change a wall or do that kind of stuff. How difficult is that to deal with? I know how to deal with it with fiberglass pink insulation if I wanted to put in another electrical outlet on that wall or a light switch or something like that. It can be dealt with without too much grief, hopefully, depending, going in over top of the rafters with the wire and down the wall, and hopefully we don't have to pull the wall up, that type of thing. How difficult is it to deal with hempcrete and some future renovations that homeowners may run into?
Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. I mean, and that's one of the key attributes of hempcrete, also as a potential chance for it to be used in a remodeling type of scenario. So if you come in and you've already got your hempcrete home, and in later years you decide I need to build the mother-in-law suite on the other side of this wall, okay, well maybe you've had some forethought in that. Maybe you have it as the homeowner, right? Maybe you think about that. Oh, maybe someday we may want to do an extension. We want to do it here. Well, you've prepped a little bit for that. Otherwise, the lovely thing about hempcrete, as Joy was saying, what you could do in 100 years from now or 500 years from now, is that you can go in there and cut out where you need to work at. You can get all of that material. You can put it back in the bucket. You can freshen it up with new hempcrete and then pack it back in. So that's a really nice characteristic of the hempcrete is that you can go in. So let's just say you decide, hey, we want to put a window here now. You cut out that material, you can reuse that material, you frame it, you frame your window in like you would, and you put your new window in, and you come back in and refinish it. So in that case, it's actually a very simple process to use hempcrete in a remodeling or extension addition scenario.
Okay, now, when you say initially when we're putting it in there and we're pouring our hempcrete in and we're tamping it down, now we've moved to we've got our wall up. It's been there for 20 years. We're going to our renovation. We're going to put in a window. So obviously we cut out around it, but now we can't tamp it like we could have when we first built the home, unless we take it right to the roof or right to the top and then start anew and tamp it down. Is there any problems with structure or, putting the window in there and then it's loosey-goosey because the other stuff's been there for 20 years and now we've just filled it in and, maybe it's settled a little. I don't know, what the product's like.
Thankfully we don't have we actually don't have this settling issue, and the nice thing about it is once that new hempcrete goes in the wall, it wants to come together with the old hempcrete. So that's a really nice thing. Now, there are times when you've got to do some hand packing in to fill gaps and those types of things. And that's one of the nice things is that the material is so pliable and can be used in so many different ways that we can overcome said issues. Absolutely. Of course, the window has to be put in properly. It's got to be structurally sound as the frame for the window. So those things have to be taken into consideration. But with that said, it absolutely can be used in a remodeling concept.
Absolutely. It will surely bond if done properly and done correctly. And I really can't say enough this, as much as we love to say this is sort of a do-it-yourself, it's not. Hempcrete is not entirely do-it-yourself, and we would continue to suggest that people buy pre-mixed binders. Vicat is the one that we would strongly recommend, and we get the absolute lowest pricing. Hemp Technologies does for that for folks. But it's very forgiving on top of it. So not only can you retrofit and remodel, and there's certainly more remodeling going on in the world than new construction generally at any given time, but even as you go, whether it's new construction or whether it's remodeling, you can cut, dig, whatever it is to get through the concrete. This is not like the hempcrete. This is not like cutting through concrete where you're taking these massive saws and energy. It's just not that difficult to get through it. But if you wanted, you just take new, fresh hempcrete, say you had a hole, and you would literally just plug that hole in or plug that gap, fill that gap in. And as long as you have the right mixture, it's going to bond to the existing lime. I can't help but say, go to hempcreteworks.com is where all of these hempcrete workshops, all of everything that we do, we travel all around to educate people and to create this industry. Ultimately is what we want to do is create this industry. It also creates that market initially for herd as long as we can get it processed correctly. And that's been a challenge here in Canada. In fact, Hemp Technologies herd is, we import it from a processing facility in the Netherlands because it has to be processed to an appropriate geometric particle size that will make it good for an aggregate in hempcrete. So uniform and small in diameter so that vapor, so the humidity can actually move through that piece of herd. So there are folks, who are just kind of buying herd from anywhere, China, or just sort of raw from Canada type of thing, and thinking that that's appropriate for hempcrete, and it is not. It must be processed to an appropriate geometric particle size.
Awesome. So hempcrete, we're starting to see a lot more of it, I hope.
Yeah, big time, and here in Canada, way big time. We're starting to see more projects. It was sort of like this. Well, Hemp Technologies built the first hempcrete homes. 3 or 4 of them are up in Asheville. Asheville, North Carolina is like the U.S. hempcrete capital. It's bizarre that that's where it is, but that's where it is. But there's more projects, one in Maine, one in Virginia Beach, and we're getting some more going in the Pacific Northwest. But in Canada, let me tell you, there's projects going up all the time.
Well, that's really awesome to hear. So it's obviously has a great appeal to the housing industry. Is there a commercial aspect to the product as well?
Absolutely. As I had told you before, that Marks and Spencer Mall is the first hempcrete giant commercial building that's gone up. That's in England. And a wonderful, and folks could YouTube this actually, YouTube the Triangle Project Hempcrete. Again, Triangle Project Hempcrete, and that is a 40-unit apartment building project that has gone up in England, and that is a fascinating excerpt that you can get on YouTube, which is really 2.5 minutes that are worth 10,000 words.
Yeah, and if you look at the Wine Society, also they have a big wine holding facility made out of a hempcrete panel, and then we also look at the Abrams Brewery, and they've got one of their distribution centers, and they have not needed to put on the air conditioning in this beer distribution center because the beer comes in cold, the walls become the temperature of the beer and stay at that consistent temperature, and those are massive savings. And we're not just talking about massive savings on the dollar book, but we're also talking about carbon emissions and all the other things that goes on when we can turn off our units and we can power down those and use, the power that we've used at another facility to actually power our facility. And it's just another shifting way to look at it. But absolutely, hempcrete is one of our principal drivers.
And the lowest lying fruit here, I can't help but say, we've got Casper here, we're on time for hemp. Marijuana production facilities, if you're not doing greenhouse, if you're not doing outdoors, I cannot imagine a more appropriate building material for a marijuana production facility considering the need for humidity and thermal control and regulation. Hempcrete is it. That's perfect for marijuana production. Just had to say that.
Woohoo! So all you producers out there, I hope you're listening.
I do hope they're listening.
Excellent. And these workshops that you're doing, what duration is the
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. They're anywhere between 5 and 6 hours. It depends on the crowd and the feel of the day, the size of the group. But we have some intense but captivating and engaging instruction. What we have going for us is that the stuff is fascinating, right? Because we have to teach. And so it's an extensive PowerPoint, but again, very engaging, excellent science. And then we provide breakfast, fruit, and coffee, and a wonderful lunch. Everybody gets to form and take home their own hempcrete sample block. So everyone is given their own kit. We go through the process of actually making the hempcrete, soaking the hurd, and folks can use dye, and because that's another great thing of these iron oxide pigments that can be added. You can get so creative. And then we have, of course, Greg Faval, currently Skyping in from New Zealand, Hemp Technologies New Zealand, but he will be relocating to the Pacific Northwest within the next few months. So we get big Q&A with Greg, obviously the experienced pioneer hempcrete builder. And then we normally will have generally someone from that region, another local sustainable builder who has some experience. Now, that pool of resources is very, very small, 3 or 4 human beings, and they're all part of the Hemp Technologies team, but they will also Skype in generally. But so we get to address everybody's questions. So we'll have sometimes brand new folks experimenting and wondering, and then we'll have some really experienced builders with some really complicated questions, and that way everyone can have their curiosities addressed.
And we're not just talking about delivering these workshops in English. We also have our whole Spanish-speaking division. And so they're out there. We've had workshops down in Mexico. We're gearing up to help work on a school project in Mexico. So this is about having an international voice. And that voice really varies on where we're located on. So when we talk about cost, well, a stick of wood in Tennessee is a different cost than a stick of wood in Manitoba, for instance. So it's a kind of variable on that sense, but at the end of the day, these materials are working. They are, blowing the real experts out there. And as Joy was saying, checking out that video about the triangle in British hempcrete in the UK.
And speaking of working, hempcreteworks.com. That's where you can track where we're going to be.
That's right. That's hempcreteworks.com. That's our website that houses all of our workshops. If you're out there and interested in building with hemp, reach out to us. Maybe there's an opportunity to combine your build project with an education, and that's really where we've got to go, is bringing people in, get them educated so we can get them quoting jobs and out in the field doing work.
Well, that's a lot to ask for, of course, but I really, really like what you've told me and educated me today about hempcrete, and I'm certain that we're going to see more and more of it in the future, and hopefully more and more acres, of course, planted to hemp in Canada as more and more products get developed. Yeah, it's such a crazy, wonderful plant, and this is an awesome application, and another awesome application of the plant being utilized. And like you say, it's a net zero carbon footprint as far as the product itself goes, and it's a money-saving device, and it's all these wonderful things that a lot of products are. From this.
When we have a local supply of the herd, we're going to go as far as to say it's actually carbon negative and not net zero. Although net zero is the ultimate goal for the home, which goes beyond, the insulation. Of course, I did not expect that we would have so much fun being able to spend this time with you on Hempcrete. All of the 50,000 products, and Anndrea and I have been, involved in love with industrial hemp for decades, but we both have discovered that we love Hempcrete. It is our favorite of the 50,000 products. So I can't thank you enough for letting us get on our Hempcrete soapboxes, because it's really one of the things we like to talk about the most.
Well, and you certainly filled up the hour on that topic. We are down to the last couple of minutes, and this is an excellent opportunity to give a shout out to URLs, organizations that you want people to focus on, and we'll start with our joint guest.
hempcreteworks.com. That's our workshop website. And, definitely always reach out, for all us Canadians, and we've got invested interests in industrial hemp, please go over to the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance. It's hemptrade.ca. Really, that is an industry-led group. We're right now embarking here in Calgary for the 13th Annual Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance Conference, really leading the way. We'll have over 200 people here representing the hemp industry from around the globe. We're going to have presentations about China, Australia, the EU. We're going to be talking about making sense of microbiological specifications. So, really getting engaged in nonprofits, and also doing things like helping sponsor this show and this network, really help keep this information out there and flowing and moving forward as we unite as a cannabis industry and embrace our whole cannabis health lifestyle and what that means to us individually, respectfully, as members of this society, talking about the incorporation of cannabis into lifestyle changes.
And Kelly?
Well, my shout out is usually for the free vaporizer. So for those of you that have heard my spiel before, you are aware that I do give away a free vaporizer to a medical patient anywhere in the world who's on a limited income and can't afford to buy one. And that's just simple. Send me an email to Kelly, Kelly, at kdkwholesale.ca.
And I want to remind people that we are not just a 1 hour broadcast, but we are a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week broadcasting network dedicated to ending prohibition. We produce many hours of original content about the need to end prohibition. All of our programs are archived at timeforhemp.com, and you can download them for free and share them with your friends. And don't forget, Time for Hemp is like a good joint. It's always best when you share it with your friends.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment.
Since 1990, over 9 million people have broken the rules and got arrested for pot. That's more than the population combined from Alaska, Montana, Wyoming, and even Vermont. Man, that sure seems like a lot. In 2005, Over 750,000 American citizens got busted with weed. What burns holes in my tent is 86% were arrested for possession. But what I can't believe is one of those people was me. So what can we do about legalization but rally around and reform legislation that state our position and make it our mission? A change in the law is what we need. It's time we legalize weed. Chief Greenbud is spouting about prison overcrowding, using words like reform, rally, and change. Why should we do time for a victimless crime? Marijuana isn't evil, but it's taking the blame. Don't you think that it's time for a change? So what can we do about legalization but rally around and reform legislation that state our position and make it our mission? A change in the law is what we need. It's time we legalize weed. Let's make it our mission, state our position. Change in the law is what we need. It's time we legalize weed. Yeah, it's time we legalize weed.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.